Hey, we are in First Samuel, chapters 13 and 14, and we're going to see kind of why God didn't want a king involved with the Israelites, because Saul is uh, going to do some stupid stuff, and then we want to compare. We want to see how these changes have taken place. So I want to take a look at how uh, the tribes of Israel started. And now, after a few hundred years, how that land has changed so dramatically. So let's go ahead and go into the text. First Samuel chapter 13 and 14. Saul was a young man when he became king, and he ruled Israel for 2 years. Then he chose 3,000 men from Israel to be full-time soldiers and sent everyone else home. 2,000 of these troops stayed with him in the hills around Michmash and Bethel. The other 1,000 were stationed with Jonathan at Gibeah in the territory of Benjamin. Jonathan is Saul's son. Jonathan led an attack on the Philistine army camp at Gibeah. The Philistine camp was destroyed, but the other Philistines heard what had happened. Then Saul told his messengers, "Go to every village in the country, give a signal with the trumpet, and when the people come together, tell them what has happened." The messengers then said to the people of Israel, "Saul has destroyed the Philistine army camp at Gibeah. Now the Philistines really hate Israel, so every town and village must send men to join Saul's army at Gilgal." The Philistines called their army together to fight Israel. They had 3,000 chariots, 6,000 cavalry, and as many foot soldiers as there are grains of the sand on the beach. They went to Michmash and they set up camp there east of Bethaven. The Israelite army realized that they were outnumbered and were going to lose the battle. Some of the Israelite men hid in caves and in clumps of bushes. Some ran to places where they could hide among large rocks. Others hid in tombs or in deep, dry pits. Still others went to Gad and Gilead on the other side of the Jordan River. Saul stayed at Gilgal. His soldiers were shaking with fear, and they were starting to run off and leave him. Saul waited there 7 days, just as Samuel had ordered him to do, but Samuel didn't come. Finally, Saul commanded, "Bring me some animals so we can offer sacrifices to please the Lord and ask for his help." Saul killed one of the animals, and just as he was placing it on the altar, Samuel arrived. Saul went out to welcome him. "What have you done?" Samuel asked. Saul answered, "My soldiers were leaving in all directions, and you didn't come when you were supposed to. The Philistines were gathering at Michmash, and I was worried that they would attack me here at Gilgal. I hadn't offered a sacrifice to ask for the Lord's help, so I forced myself to offer a sacrifice on the altar fire." "That was stupid," Samuel said. "You didn't obey the Lord your God. If you had obeyed him, someone from your family would always have been king of Israel. But no, you disobeyed. So the Lord won't choose anyone else from your family to be king. In fact, he's already chosen the one he wants to be the next leader of his people." Then Samuel left Gilgal. Part of Saul's army had not deserted him, and he led them to Gibeah in Benjamin to join his other troops. Then he counted them and found that he still had 600 men. Saul, Jonathan, and their army set up camp at Gibeah in Benjamin. The Philistine army was camped at Michmash. Each day they sent out patrols to attack and rob villages and then destroy them. One patrol would go north along the road to Ophrah in the region of Shual. Another patrol would go west along the road to Beth Horon. Third patrol would go east toward the desert on the road to the ridge that overlooks Zeboim Valley. The Philistines would not allow any Israelites to learn how to make iron tools. If we allowed that, they said, those worthless Israelites would make swords and spears. Whenever the Israelites wanted to get an iron point put on a cattle prod, they had to go to the Philistines. Even if they wanted to sharpen plow blades, picks, axes, sickles, pitchforks, they still had to go to them. And the Philistines charged high prices. So whenever the Israelite soldiers had to go into battle, none of them had a sword or a spear except for Saul and his son Jonathan. The Philistines moved their camp to the pass at Michmash, and Saul was in Geba with his 600 men. Saul's own tent was set up under a fruit tree by the threshing place at the edge of the town. Ahijah was serving as priest, and one of his jobs was to get answers from the Lord for Saul. Ahijah's father was Ahitub, and his father's brother was Ichabod. Ahijah's grandfather was Phinehas, and his great-grandfather was Eli, had been the Lord's priest at Shiloh. One day, Jonathan told the soldier who carried his weapons that he wanted to attack the Philistine camp on the other side of the valley. So they slipped out of the Israelite camp without anyone knowing it. Jonathan didn't even tell his father he was leaving. Jonathan decided to get to the Philistine camp by going through the pass that led between Shiny Cliff and Michmash to the north and Thornbrush Cliff and Geba to the south. Jonathan and the soldier who carried his weapons talked as they went toward the Philistine camp. It's just the two of us against all those godless men, Jonathan said. But the Lord can help a few soldiers win a battle just as easily as he can help a whole army. Maybe the Lord will help us win this battle. Do whatever you want, the soldier answered. I'll be right there with you. This is what we will do, Jonathan said. We will go across and let them see us. If they agree to come down the hill and fight where we are, then we won't climb up to their camp. But we will go if they tell us to come up the hill and fight. That will mean the Lord is going to help us win. Jonathan and the soldier stood at the bottom of the hill where the Philistines could see them. And the Philistines said, look, those worthless Israelites have crawled out of the holes where they've been hiding. Then they yelled down to Jonathan and the soldier, come up here and we will teach you a thing or two. Jonathan turned to the soldier and said, follow me. The Lord is going to let us win. Jonathan crawled up the hillside and the soldier right behind him. When they got to the top, Jonathan killed the Philistines who attacked from the front, and the soldier killed those who attacked from behind. Before they had gone 100 feet, they had killed about 20 Philistines. The whole Philistine army panicked. Those in the camp, those on guard duty, those in the fields, those on raiding parties, all of them were afraid and confused. Then God sent an earthquake, and the ground began to tremble. Saul's lookouts at Geba saw that the Philistine army was running in every direction like melted wax. Saul told his officers, call the roll and find out who left our camp. When they had finished, they found out that Jonathan and the soldier who carried his weapons were missing. At that time, Ahijah was serving as priest for the army of Israel, and Saul told him, come over here. Let's ask God what we should do. And just as Saul finished saying this, he could see that the Philistine army was getting more and more confused, and he said, Ahijah, never mind. Saul quickly called his army together, then led them to the Philistine camp. By this time, the Philistines were so confused that they were killing each other. There were also some hired soldiers in the Philistine camp who now switched to Israel's side and fought for Saul and Jonathan. Many Israelites had been hiding in the hill country of Ephraim. And when they had heard that the Philistines were running away, they came out of hiding and joined in chasing the Philistines. So the Lord helped Israel win the battle that day. Saul had earlier told his soldiers, I want to get even with those Philistines by sunset. If any of you eat before then, you will be under a curse. And so he made them swear not to eat. By the time the fighting moved past Beth-aven, the Israelite troops were weak from hunger. The army and the people who lived nearby had gone into a forest, and they came to a place where the honey was dripping on the ground, but no one ate any of it because they were afraid of being put under a curse. Jonathan did not know about Saul's warning to the soldiers, so he dipped the end of his walking stick in the honey and ate some with his fingers. He felt stronger, more alert. Then a soldier told him, your father swore that anyone who ate food today would be put under a curse, and we agreed not to eat. That's why we're so weak. Jonathan said, my father has caused you a lot of trouble. Look at me. I had only a little of this honey, but already I feel strong and alert. I wish you had eaten some of the food the Philistines left behind. We would have been able to kill a lot more of them. By evening, the Israelites' army was exhausted from killing Philistines all the way from Michmash to Ajalon. They grabbed the food they had captured from the Philistines and started eating. They even killed sheep and cows and calves right on the ground and ate the meat without draining the blood. Someone told Saul, look, the army is disobeying the Lord by eating meat before the blood drains out. You're right, Saul answered. They are being unfaithful to the Lord. Hurry, roll a big rock over here, and then tell everyone in camp to bring their cattle and lambs to me. They can kill the animals on this rock and then eat the meat. That way, no one will disobey the Lord by eating meat that with blood still in it. That night, the soldiers brought their cattle over to the big rock and killed them there. It was the first altar Saul had built for offering sacrifices to the Lord. Saul said, let's attack the Philistines again while it's still dark. We can fight them all night. Let's kill them and take everything they own. The people answered, we will do whatever you want. Wait, Ahijah the priest said, let's ask God what we should do. Saul asked God, should I attack the Philistines? Will you help us win? This time God did not answer. Saul called his army officers together and said, we have to find out what sin has kept God from answering. I swear by the living Lord that whoever sinned must die, even if it turns out to be my own son, Jonathan. No one said a word. Saul told his army, you stand on that side of the priest, and Jonathan and I will stand on the other side. And everybody agreed. Then Saul prayed, O Lord, our Lord, God of Israel, why haven't you answered me today? Please show us who sinned. Was it my son Jonathan and I, or was it your people, Israel? The answer came back that Jonathan or Saul had sinned, not the army. Saul told Ahijah, now ask the Lord to decide between Jonathan and me. And the answer came back that Jonathan had sinned. Jonathan, Saul exclaimed, tell me what you did. I dipped the end of my walking stick in some honey and ate a little. Now you say I have to die? Yes, Jonathan, I swear to God that you must die. No, the soldiers shouted. God helped Jonathan win the battle for us. We won't let you kill him. We swear to the Lord that we won't let you kill him or even lay a hand on him. So the army kept Saul from killing Jonathan. Saul stopped hunting down the Philistines, and they went home. When Saul became king, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the kings of Zobah, the Philistines, and the Amalekites had all been robbing the Israelites. Saul fought back against these enemies and stopped them from robbing Israel. He was a brave commander and always won his battles. Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz. They had 3 sons, Jonathan, Ishvi, and Malchishua. They also had 2 daughters. The older one was Merab, and the younger one was Michal. Abner, Saul's cousin, was the commander of the army. Saul's father Kish and Abner's father Ner were sons of Abiel. Saul was at war with the Philistines for as long as he lived. Whenever he found a good warrior or a brave man, Saul made him join his army. So we see that Saul, first off, offers sacrifices. It's not his place to offer sacrifices. And then we see him making curses and commands, almost lost his son because of it. He was a good leader, a good fighter, but he was far from perfect. Here we see the map of what's taken place as he is the king, and I wanted to show you the area. All right, here's Gibeah, here's Michmash, Geba, where Jonathan's at, Gilgal, all of these places, they're the hot spots. This is the land of the Philistines. So you got to ask yourself, what in the world are they doing with an army camp right there in the middle of Israelite territory? Why have the Israelites allowed them to be there? Well, here's one thing that I want to show you. Now, this is the map of Saul's day. Okay, this is the land of the Israelites. This is the land that now they are living in. Now, remember, God told them to take the land, that it was yours. Remember, they crossed the Jordan River right here and began their battles. Jericho is right there. And they were supposed to conquer and lead. Now, remember here, let's see here. Here are the 12 tribes. Look at the land that they had originally. They had everything all the way to the Mediterranean Sea, all the way around the Dead Sea, everything. They had control of all of it. And now within just a few hundred years, a couple of generations, we see their land is now so much smaller. And the Philistines are so much stronger. The Canaanites, the Phoenicians, the Syrians, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Edomites, the Amalekites, they are all going to be wreaking havoc on the kingdom of Israel. And it will be in chaos for quite a long time. So you see how things have changed um, for the Israelites. We'll talk about it more in our next recording. Have a great day.